Alright, good day everyone. So, my name is Stefania Peters, and today I'll be going through a nifty little, how to say, Power BI visual that I found. It is the Synoptic chart. Now, the chart has been around for a while, but what I found very useful with it is that you can use the Synoptic designer to take maps. Say, for example, your country, like my country, which is Trinidad. It is not a country that you would find the chart freely available on the internet. You'll have to build it yourself out of the PNG file. So I took it and actually created a map that I can actually do a report off of. So today that's what I'm going to be showing. So let me just bring up my Power BI desktop here. Alright. So to get to this visual, now the visual, as I said, is not something that is built into native Power BI. I don't know if I said that before, but it's actually a visual that is a custom visual. So I'm going to click on get more visuals. So I clicked on the three buttons here and I click on get more visuals and auto load. Now if that doesn't bring it up, you can also go over to the insert tab at the top here and get your visual. So I'm going to search for Synoptic. Search, and there we go, Synoptic Panel by OKViz. It gives you a short description here, it gives you a rating, and of course this star says that it's certified by Power BI, so certified by Microsoft. So I'm not going to add this. Alright, so it said it was successfully imported. So let's get this so you can see it better. So let's get our data. So I'm going to get my data, click more, and my machine is moving a bit slow. And it is loading. Alright, perfect. Alright, so my data, now you see all the different data sources that you can get here, but I really brought this out so we could just get a quick glimpse of all the different data sources available to us right now. But my data source currently it's in an Excel file, so I'm going to connect to that Excel file. Alright, and then I'm going to go to find where that data is stored. So I have it in my report testing folder. Have it on the regions. Open up my data, and it is loading. Alright, so it's taking a while to connect to it. Alright, so I have my Tobago data and my Trinidad region information. So I'm gonna just hit load for these because they're already everything is already being recognized. I'm just gonna hit load for this. Now I also want to get some more data that I have in another Excel sheet, so I'm just gonna hit Excel right here. Just create some connection in the model. So it's trying to detect relationships. Now I don't need it to detect the relationships because relationships are not that important to me right now. Right, so now we can bring in our financial information also. I have my financial sample. I'm gonna click open. Alright, so I see I have this table called financials and I have a sheet, but I really want to bring in the table. It's easier for me to manage that way, and I want to transform the data because I want to make sure that I only bring in the information that Alright, so let's bring this front and center. Okay, so this is our Power Query editor. We have our financial information here. So I'm just gonna rename this, give this a capital F. Alright, I see my segments are here, my region codes, my products, right, my discount bands, units sold. So for this report, I basically only want my segment. I want my country code, my region code, products. Don't want my manufacturing price. So I'm just hitting control and I'm selecting these. Or I can easily come over here to navigation, click on the gear icon for navigation, and it would allow me to choose the columns from this that I wanted, but I won't do that for now, so I'm just gonna hit control. I want my gross sales, just similar to the sales. I want my profit, I want my date, month number, name, and the year. So this is all that I need. I'm gonna right click and say remove other columns. I'm gonna click here, so I'm gonna hit cancel. It's gonna try to bring it in before the change type, so I'm actually gonna put it here, and then I'm gonna choose remove other columns, and we should be good to go. There we go. Alright, so this is looking up for me. Then I'm gonna close and apply this to my Power BI desktop file now. So the data is now being brought in. Alright, so before we get digging into this data here, I want to check my relationships. So I'm going to click on the model tab. Well, it's not really tab, model button. I'm going to bring up this here, and I see that I have a code that's here, and I want to relate that code to my region. So it's region and code. So I'm going to drag code and go to region code. Drag this code into region code. Alright, now the reason why Trinidad and Tobago is split, I'll explain that later on when I actually use the Synoptic Panel chart visual. So now we're good to go. Yes, this is exactly how I want it to look. So I'm then gonna come over to the visualization report building. So I'm gonna click on the Synoptic Panel. It's gonna bring up this visual here. Now what I'd like to see are the different regions in Trinidad and my sales by those regions. So I'm gonna now click on Trinidad, gonna click region, and the financials, I'm gonna hit sales. Right, so now it's asking me to get my map. So I'm gonna find my map. It's stored locally on my machine. Alright, so I have Trinidad, my SVG document, and there we go. So we're making some progress. Now we want to do the same for Tobago. So I'm just gonna copy this visual, right click, if it only allow me to. I'll just go the fastest way, then home. Alright, so let's do it again. Let's just bring in the visual. See, now it wants to give me a hard time. So Tobago is a little smaller than Trinidad is, and it's up to the top of Trinidad. So we're gonna do it like this. And I'm gonna say I want to see my region of for Tobago. I want to see my sales. Alright, so I'm gonna click local maps. It's gonna bring me back to my folder. I'm gonna choose Tobago. And there we go. So this is all well and good. Now to the naked eye, this just looks as though it's a colored map. Now what is actually showing here is each of these different regions in Trinidad and the amount of sales. Now we see that sales is not really formatted well, and we can't really tell well which region has the most sales. So to get that to show better, I'm going to go over to my data tab, my data area, sorry. I'm going to click on financials, on sales, and under sales I'm going to choose currency. So I'm going to click on the dollar sign. And on my profit, I want to also put it as currency. Alright, now I don't want my decimal points to be auto, so I'll put 2. Same for sales. Alright, there we go. So I have enforced that my decimal points are 2 decimal points, and we can now proceed to go back to our report, and we can now see, there we go, we see our sales, and we see it shows us it's 2,596,000. Now I don't want to have to look at this like that, so I can now put a card on my report. So I'm actually going to put 3 cards, and I'll explain the 3 cards just now. So this is 1. I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to put in the fields, I'm going to drag sales. Alright, there we go. So you see sales. I'm going to copy this visual. I'm going to paste it, Control V. Then I'm going to paste it again. Right, there we go. So why I put these 3 boxes here? Now I'm seeing my total sales, but I also want to see my total profit for this particular list of countries. I'm going to click on profit, drag it over to the field for the card, and there we go. So if I click on the region Sandy Grande, it's going to filter my profits. Now of course I have this other sales here, but what I'm going to do in this other card, I'm actually going to find out how profitable our regions are. So I'm going to click on this, remove the field from sales, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a measure. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots by financials, click new measure. Alright, and there we go. So I'm going to call this profit margin, but equals, I'm going to divide my total sales, and you notice here that when I type sales, it is not giving me the sales that I have over here. So what's happening is that the number that was expected in this field is actually a number and not a column that has a summarization on it. So what I have to do now is to just put some dummy data for now. I'm gonna close this. It is going to compile. There we go. I said compile and we're not even coding, but I'm gonna now drag profit margin into here. The information that you see is not going to be relevant, but we'll get that changed just now. So what we're gonna do now, we need to create two measures that calculates the total sales and the total profit, so we actually get a calculated number. So we don't want it giving us the summarization of a column. We want this the actual calculation. So we're gonna go and create two new measures. So we're gonna say new measure. It's gonna load. Gonna call this total sales sign sum, and it's asking for the column name. I'm gonna put sales, close my brackets, and it's gonna give me that number, and this is going to go, and then I'm gonna create another measure, and of course you're gonna just call this total profit. Now you could always take your measures, know what measures you're gonna create in advance and save it in a document somewhere, but for the sake of also introducing you to the world of creating measures, I'm gonna create this measure here. This is using the DAX language, so equals, so I'm gonna put sum, we want the sum of the profit, so it's gonna bring up that table, press enter, and there we go. So I can actually change these two cards that show sales and profits to reflect these two measures. So let me do that one time. I'm gonna click on sales. Instead of using the sales summarization, I'll just use my measure, and for my profit I'm gonna use my profit measure. So now we have these two measures. Now we also realize that I lost my dollar symbol, so I can easily get that back by actually clicking on the measure, coming over to measure tools. So you see measure tools is highlighted, and I click the dollar sign, and I do the same for total sales. Click on total sales again, choose my currency, my dollar sign, and of course if you use pound, you could always click the drop down and choose British pound, but we're not doing that, or you choose euros according to your need. Right now, our profit margin, we know that this is a percentage, so for us to get the percentage to reflect properly, I will need to make sure that I multiply. So let me just do the profit margin one time. So I bring up my profit margin. I'm gonna now divide my total sales by my total profit. So you notice now it's finding sales and profit, which are these two measures that I have. I'm now gonna multiply this by 0.01. I'm gonna hit enter. And we realize that now our profit margin is showing as 0.07, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come over here, click the percentage sign, and there we go. It's 7.03% for the countries of Trinidad and Tobago. And remember, this is being filtered because I have these two countries here. So if you look on these two visuals, if I click on the visual here, you would see that is total profit, and I have my total sales, but they're all being affected by these two visuals here. So if I click on the visual, you see for this particular region, which is Sandy Grande, it is 2.6 million in sales. My total profit is $386,000, and my profit margin is 6.71%. Now, why did I put my profit margins, and is this gonna be also important? Now, what you can then do with your chart, your visual, is click on your visual and come over to this paint roller, which is actually the format, and we're then gonna come down. We're gonna want our data labels on so that we know the region. So we have the region's name, and then we're gonna go to data colors, and we want to use saturate. What saturate is gonna do is then put the density of the color according to the total sale. So here we have, it's looking quite pale, and the reason being is because it's taken from the overall total sales of the entire population. So what could do now is come over to my country code, drag my country code as a filter on this page. Now, because I know that the country code here for Trinidad and Tobago is actually 1, I will then select 1, and there we go. You see the color has now gotten a little more life, because what it was doing was pulling based off of all the other countries here. Now, if this were not, if this, sorry, had I not clicked on the country code here, the colors would have never been showing this strong enough. So that's why we're able to see it a little better when we hit saturate. So I'm going to come over to Tobago. I'm going to put on saturate as well, but the thing with using saturate for Tobago is that Tobago is just stands by itself basically. It's not split into any other region, so I'm trying to get this visual focus. I don't know why. Right, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to turn on saturate. Alright, and you see that Tobago has become quite pale. So in doing so, I've also now made Tobago look quite pale due to it not having that much total sales compared to Trinidad. Now, say for example we wanted to measure these regions by profitability, then we do it differently. So what I'll do, I'll click on sales. Instead of having sales by region, I'm gonna come back to my fields. Well, I'm gonna change my measure from sales, and I'm gonna put that measure to be profit margin. Alright, so you see Tobago got some color, which means that Tobago's profit margin must be quite well. So the sales wasn't that strong, but their profit margin is good. And if we click on Trinidad and we do the same, so I take profit margin, drag it into the measure, it's going to replace the sales, and we see now Couva Tamakit is now our most profitable region. It is actually, and if we look at the sales with Couva Tamakit, the sales for Couva Tamakit is not even in the millions, but it is actually very profitable according to the amount of sales and the profit. So there it is. Just by changing around, we are now able to see that in Trinidad and Tobago brings in good profit, and Couva brings in a significant amount of profit. So with that simple change, you're now able to see the chart and the report come to life by asking or causing the report to show something that's more useful to somebody that's going to be using the report. So this, as I said, this chart is called the OKViz Synoptic Panel chart, and for the country I've put Trinidad and I've put Tobago here to be able to see it across this pane, and I have my profit margins, my total profit, my total sales. If you want to see more like this, you could leave me a comment, and I'll be feel free to continue creating more content like this. It's my first time doing this, and I trust that it brought about some form of good information to you or something useful that you can go and use now. So, all the best to you. Take care.